Hello and welcome to Elevate, the awareness shift, waking the quantum self. Today on the show, we're going to talk about attachments and vibrational spheres. It is actually how we operate as a human being. Well, actually how we operate in all dimensions. But it's going to be a fun show. And Kristin is with us in the studio. Hi, Kristin.
Hello, hello. So fun to be here.
Great to see you again. Just going to fade down that beautiful music. Thanks, Carolann, for the music. She gave us the music for the show. We haven't got an intro for the show yet. Who's online waiting? Thirsty. Hey, Thirsty. Hope you enjoy the show today. It's going to be a very informative one. Okay, so today's show is about attachments. A lot of people, some people don't even know what attachments are, but there is this common idea that attachments are, I have a negative entity or a demon or a soul that has attached to me, my energy field, and is sucking the life out of me, or it is making me feel bad, or it's making me do things that I don't want to do. You hear about it when you like horror shows and people that are mass murderers and people that say, it wasn't my doing, something else made me do it. So in the collective, in the sort of conscious collective or the unconscious collective, that is what most people understand as attachments. And a lot of people think, oh, have I got an attachment that I can get rid of? Can I find somebody to get rid of my attachments? But the conversation is a lot bigger than that story. That is just one aspect of what people think attachments are. We're going to go into exactly what it is that attachments are. What do you understand attachments are, Kristin?
Well, it's shifting and changing as I study and pay more attention to themes like attachments. And as I go through life myself, and then also I'm an energy healer, I practice Reiki. So I deal with the sense that people have attachments and things like that as well. So I'm excited for this conversation. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing about attachments is that we're all attached to something. We touched on it last week on the show, or this week on the show with Des de Zuckerman. We were talking about the energy field and the sacred anatomy, the anatomy of the energy field. And she talked about them as, there's Alison. Hey, Alison. How are you? Oh, you put that up. Sorry.
Yeah, we're learning how to
let you do it. Chris is here to help me navigate all the comments and everything, and I'm so used to doing it all myself. I've got to let go of control. But we touched about it where she spoke about, we did a little exercise at the end, cutting all the ties that we go out into life, and we create these attachments, vibrational attachments to everything that we're engaged in. Everybody is holding an energy field and it's vibrating. Last week on the show, Desda was talking about it. It was the electromagnetic field, which is over covering the sacred anatomy, because there's this sacred energy field, which is your soul and all the different aspects of your soul. And then there's the electromagnetic field, which is attached to your emotions, your ego, your desires, your wants, and the energy of the universe. So when we're interacting with anything, we're forming alignment, energy alignments. So I wanted to go over what attachments are today and how to recognize them and how to change your attachments to energy vibrations. And there's never a better, I'm going to talk from the book, the team books. Let me bring up, let me do a share screen. So Frances Ray Key, who I've had on the show many times, and I keep saying I've got to get her back on the show. There she is, beautiful Frances. She, in 2010, after her mother died, she connected with her mother on this other side and was having a conversation and started to write it down. And that conversation went on for about 3 months, where she had this incredible download of intelligent information. And it turned into 4 books called the Team Books. The first one is called The Team, A Mother's Wisdom from the Other Side. So we spoke about this last week, Kristin, when talking to your spirit guides. She was talking to a whole team of intelligence, a stream of infinite intelligence, if you like. But at the beginning, she thought she was just talking to her mother, but actually she was talking to a whole team. So what I'm going to talk about today comes from book 2, The Team, A Mother's Wisdom from the Other Side, book 2. And that is vibrational spheres. And
you touched on that last week and talked a little bit about them. So I think it's perfect you're delving in today. I think it's perfect.
The first step in this conscious approach, this is a quote from the vibrational sphere chapter in book 2 of the Team book, is to be aware that everything you encounter throughout the world is actually a vibration masquerading as an event and is posing an invitation for you to join it. So everything in life is a vibration, and it is let's get rid of that. It is asking us to join it. So attachment, whether it's a negative entity, a spirit, or some people call it the demonic energies. We were talking about this, I think, off screen last week. You and I were chatting about alcohol and alcoholics, because we were talking about the Shirley MacLaine. That's right. I shared the Shirley MacLaine story where I was presented with a glass of liqueur and in another dimension. And I said, can you get drunk when you're not in your body? And we were talking, and the message that Shirley gave me was, you can't actually get drunk, but you can remember the sensation and you can recreate it, because everything is vibration and thought. It's not the same sensation as being in a physical body and having that physical experience, but it's close. And a lot of people who have died, if you like, have left their body and were alcoholics and really like that sensation of the physical drunkenness, they can attach to people who drink, and they can urge them to drink more. And maybe this is why some people become alcoholics, and they say they feel like they can't control it. It's out of their control.
And if you remember, and it was in our conversation afterwards, I shared about this guy that I was dating, and I didn't realize that he was an alcoholic. But I'm an empath, and I would feel these beautiful feelings, like swirly, happy, lovely feelings all through my body. But then I realized at one point that he had left the room and had a drink and came back, and I picked up on it.
You picked up on it.
And I said, oh my goodness, did you just have a beer or something? And he did. And it clued me in, because I didn't get that feeling when I'm drinking, and I get that kind of heady, cloudy feeling, or that tightness, kind of gunky feeling in my throat. I just felt the elation. And so it totally made sense, these attachments that would want to attach to my body and cause me to drink, because they're maybe not feeling the negative part of it, just the good part, because that's all I was picking up on. That's all I was empathing from my friend.
Right. Yeah. And there's also a vibrational sphere of that same experience. And so we are interacting with what the Team books called, before I read the Team books, I used to call them thought forms. Like a thought creates a form. It's a literal form that we can tap into. It's almost like it's an energy vortex, and we energetically can plug into that energy vortex, and that energy vortex feeds us, and we in turn feed it. And this is what it says in the Team books, the same thing. That let me just see if I can find. The spheres are not to be thought of as something belonging to another dimension, she says in the Team books. They are with you now, granted. They are not visible to the human eye any more than radio waves or microwaves or computer waves, internet waves, but they exist within your vicinity nonetheless. They vary in strength, quality, and degree, and are a direct reflection of every point of consciousness in existence. As a result, there exist spheres of love, anger, kindness, violence, forgiveness, peace, conflict, fear, mercy, joy, and every other possible form of energy you can think of, each one floating like a gigantic bubble, she describes it, like a gigantic bubble. I remember reading this years ago and thinking about this because I thought of them as thought forms, which was more structured, but then she describes it as a gigantic bubble of energy, and with unique shapes and sizes between all dimensions, oscillating at different rates of speed and thereby emanating a certain tone or pitch. They are also constantly changing, and more and more thoughts are added to them, all removed from them through the neutralization process of healing. So yeah, good or bad. Oh, you've just been good or bad.
I'm right there.
She's playing with it. This is what I normally do. It's so nice to have somebody else to do it, but I've got to let go of control. Let go of control. Good or bad, the spheres that you plug into, if you like, you change that sphere by your participation in it, and it changes you by, feeding you. As I say, it's a two-way feed. So attachments are not just negative. They're everything. Like, we are entangled, quantum entanglement. We are entangled with each other. When we're at home, we're entangled with our home, what we think of our home. We're entangled with ourselves, what we think of ourselves. Like, thought is vibration, and vibration entangles and forms attachments. And what did she call it yesterday? I'm trying to think of the word that, because when we did the exercise at the end of the show last week.
I missed it. I don't remember.
Anyway, we did an exercise. She brought in Archangel Michael to cut all the ties. So ties can become attachments. If you can sort of tune in, if you like, to a vibrational sphere or delve into a vibrational experience. And if you're not holding a thought form that is in alignment with it, like a subconscious thought form that is in alignment with it, you can just play there and leave. But if you're holding beliefs about life or yourself, and then you attach to it, like you might watch something, you might see someone in the street, maybe, I'm just getting a visual, hurting a dog. And if you're a really like righteous person and you get really upset about it, you might go up to that person and yell and don't speak to the dog like this, blah, 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 and then go home and then stew on it for hours. So in that, you've like attached to the sphere of violence or aggression or unfairness, and it's active in your vibration and it's feeding you and you're feeding it. Don't you know that, when you do get upset about something and then you go home and you stew about it and you want to let it go, but you can't? Have you ever felt that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well,
yeah. Well, I
so
just go, Karen.
Go on. No, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, sometimes, something simple happens, somebody puts the milk carton back empty, or somebody cuts me off in traffic. And most of the time I've practiced this. And so I sit in like, oh, geez, whatever, no big deal, moving on. But every once in a while I get really caught up in it. And it gets, and I think often when it's in traffic or out in public, I'm picking up on the irritation and aggravation of everybody in traffic that day. During the COVID year, and I remember sharing this with our team that, like, here in Utah, people were like emptying the grocery store shelves. It was panic mode here. And I was just going to the grocery store to get regular items, and I would walk in and I'd be like, oh, I could just feel it. And then I'd start to go like, do I have enough toilet paper? What if toilet paper runs out and I don't have toilet paper and I have to, oh my gosh. And then I'd go, wait a minute, this is not how I usually feel, because I've been working on it and practicing this for a long time. So I did have to disengage, and I don't like to walk around the world shielded like some people talk about, shielding myself from everything all the time, because I feel like that comes from fear. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'd rather
when we get stuck on something like that.
Yeah.
And Vladdy says here, whenever there is a conflict, because a lot of us are like, we don't like unfairness or any sort of violence. There is a conflict. That's when I struggle to sleep or let go of it until it's resolved. If we look at life as not personal, we make it personal because we're holding beliefs that we believe is who we are. And in truth, we are love, right? I mean, it says at the end of this chapter, it goes into the ultimate sphere, the biggest sphere and the overarching sphere and the most dominant sphere is the sphere of unconditional love, which is the sphere of source. So we're sort of swimming in that sphere of pure positive energy, but inside love, there are all these tiny little bubbles of experiences that we can tap into, and we align through our thoughts. So it's the same with negative attachments. If people feel like they've got a negative entity attaching to them. I once heard about this years ago when I was a young energy healer, and I didn't understand it. And I remember asking my guides, like, what's that all about, this negative attachment? Presented to me as the theory of some negative entity or spirit's going to attach to you and suck the energy out of you. And I was with a friend of mine who's since left the planet, who was born thalidomide affected, and she was sick all the time. And I just had an aha before. And I remember dropping her home. We were out at the beach. We were young. I'm a young, healthy person, and I'm absolutely exhausted. And I didn't know why. And I said to her, do you mind if I drop you home? I've just got to go home and sleep. And she said, fine. And I remember when she got out of the car, as I dropped her home, I said, God, now I know what you feel like, because she was exhausted all the time. She had a hole in her heart, and the red blood, the oxygenated blood and the unoxygenated blood would mix. And so when she got exhausted, she often looked blue. And she was exhausted a lot of the time. So I'm a young, healthy girl that didn't really understand exhaustion. And at that moment, I said to her, now I understand how you feel. I feel absolutely exhausted. And I felt sort of empathy for her, having experienced that exhaustion for no particular reason. And then I went home and slept, had a bit of a chat to the mob. I don't even know if I knew I was talking to my guides, but what was that all about? I asked. They said, you wanted to know what an attachment felt like. Now you know. And I'm like, whoa. I didn't actually ask them what attached to me. Like, was it a negative entity, an evil spirit, a demonic spirit, or whatever? I was just given that information. You wanted to know what an attachment felt like? Now you know. But as I'm sitting here, Kristin, I'm having this aha moment. I was probably attaching to Nikki and her sickness and that whole exhaustion bubble vibrational sphere,
Right.
and taking that on, much like you were feeling the drunkenness of your friend, even though you hadn't been drinking, right? Like, this is what we can do.
And rather than it's like, the good angel and the bad angel sitting on my shoulder, or an actual thing that is attached, it is more like I've attached myself to that sphere.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's such an eye-opener reading those passages.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense, well, to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And at no moment are we victims of any sphere, for we are totally in control of what we choose to attach to, or choose to engage in, or entangle in, or be a part of. Like, we can pull ourselves out, just like we spoke about this at length in the Inner Sanctum over the last few years. And I always see it like, if you're plugging a socket into an electricity, and then the electricity is feeding that wire, you can literally unplug it. Like, you can vibrationally unplug from anything. And what we do is, like, we might be swimming in a bubble of bliss, and then we unplug from bliss and plug into, like, disgust or rage or anger or unfairness or whatever. We're literally plugging into these different spheres. And Frances said, when she came into the Inner Sanctum, and we were speaking about this, and it says it in the books, that as we engage in these vibrational spheres, they grow because of our participation, and they change. So the more we're plugged into unfairness and anger and sorrow and what did you say, conflict, if you're plugged into the energy sphere of conflict, like here in Australia, it's a big issue. I'm going to get a girlfriend on the show who's in the Jewish community, but there have been mass marches for Palestine for peace because of the war going on in Gaza and Israel. And someone in the Inner Sanctum said to me, wow, look at this that's going on in Australia. This is so cool. And I said, it's actually not cool. You think that all these hundreds of thousands of people are out there marching for peace, but the greater majority of them are not in that bubble of peace. They're in a bubble of anger, and they're marching for revenge. Like, let's kill Netanyahu. Let's hate all the Jews. And, they're in anger. But it's so easy to get caught up when it's collective like that. If you go to a march and everyone's in that, you might go thinking, I'm going to march for peace. And you just get caught up in this energy of anger and unfair, this is unfair, and hatred, and it can sweep you away. Well, you can feel like you can get swept away, but at no point are you victimized by anything, including if you feel like you have a negative attachment. You simply choose to think differently. How can I think differently about this? What is it that I want? I always say to people when teaching deliberate creation, whenever you feel the lack of something, on the other side of that is always what is wanted, and you're feeling the lack of wanted. So if you're feeling angry because of war, like, what do you want? I want peace. I want everyone to get along. I want people to stop killing each other. So what does that feel like when you have peace? What can you think about that can create peace? How can you create peace in your own life? And then you can literally unplug from the war sphere and plug into the peaceful sphere and feed the energy of peace into this collective bubble of peace. And then you're affecting the collective consciousness. You're affecting the world. Our little stand in our vibration is affecting everything. Yeah, I mean, this is another way that understanding these bubbles of spheres.
Yeah, you're painting a picture for me from everything as small as like children on the playground get caught up in mob mentality, right? When somebody picks on somebody and everybody laughs, and then they all are like, are they looking at me? Should I laugh? But they get caught up in that. And then I'm thinking also on the worldwide stage, like a lot of people say, one of the positives that came out of 9/11 and the Twin Towers going down was that it unified so many people because of and it kind of put it all out through the world. What a tragedy, but it did unify so much of us. And so because we all fed into, I mean, how I'm picturing it now is that we all fed into that collective bubble of compassion for each other because we were all affected. So many of us were.
Yeah. I'm going to read another excerpt from this chapter on vibrational spheres. It says, because these spheres are collectively created, they are also collectively available. Access to them is never blocked by any force outside oneself. As long as one is available to calibrate one's frequency to match them, their bounty is freely flowing to everyone. So this is her vernacular in the book, but as long as you're available to feel deliberate in how you think and feel, I would say, they're bounting, whether that sphere is that sphere of bliss or love or peace or whatever you're looking for, while you deliberately change your ideas of the world or yourself, or, look for the good, their bounty is freely flowing to everyone. We are all magnetic entities, and so we are constantly linked to some degree with a kindred sphere of similar energy to our own. The type of sphere you are connected to changes with the tides of emotions and level of your spiritual sensitivity and you are experiencing at a particular time. However, you may choose to consciously participate in this process rather than simply follow it by instinct, and in the process learn two important things: how to gain stability in your connection to these spheres and how to upgrade the quality of the sphere that you join. She says here, the earth is crying out for this stability, and so your spiritual team, is urging you to take hold of this great concept, understanding that collective consistency of alignment works to create shields of protection, both personally and globally. And then she goes into the first step in this conscious process to become aware that everything you encounter throughout the world is a vibration masquerading and asking you, it's posing an invitation for you to join it. This means that every conversation you have, every physical interaction you participate in, every sound, this is her words, you hearken to, Every visual stimulation you focus upon, every idea or opinion that you consider, every person you meet in your life is presenting you with the option to unite with the vibrational sphere to which they are attached or not. In other words, you are surrounded at all times by vibrational invitations, masking as things, people, and situations. It is your assignment when presented with these options to make a conscious choice to whether or not to align with the energies at hand. So what does that look like in daily life? You're watching something that you disagree with. It might be war, it might be children being bombed senselessly, and you're all up in your upsetness. In that moment of being upset, to consciously align with something is to say, I don't need to feel this way, and feeling this upset is not helping that situation. It really doesn't. It's like when people are in grief. Grief is like when you and Carolann were on Elevate, the two of you were talking about death and grief. Like grief is a huge vibrational sphere. It's absolutely massive. And so many people are plugged into it, and we have a choice whether to be there or not. I remember when my father died, my two brothers, well, three of us actually, went to another city because he was in a hospital in another city, to say goodbye to him. And then we came back, and I was telling my sister-in-law what a joyous occasion it was, and she couldn't understand that going to say goodbye to my father was a joyous occasion. She couldn't understand it. And she questioned me, why is that? Why was that? So I said, well, never before have all of us been together without our partners, like all the brothers and sisters, the siblings, being together.
Right.
And to have, because we spent the night together after we said goodbye, and we stayed up till 4:00 in the morning talking, and we had that opportunity. It's going to make me cry. We had that opportunity to interact with each other without our wives and children, and on a very personal, and it was just such a beautiful experience. To me, like Dad, I had spoke to Dad's soul years before, and he told me when he was going to die, and he was like, right on, like not the conscious, living Dad, his soul told me. So I was expecting it. So I wasn't in any sort of shock or trauma around it, because I knew he was going to leave at that time. But there was so much more. There was such a beauty to the whole experience, and I was focusing on that. So when my sister-in-law was like, how can you think that this death is a joyous experience? It's like, where are you focusing? Where are you focusing?
Yeah. I have a good friend who had an experience a few years back where they were all in the room when her father-in-law was right on the edge of passing. And he wasn't somebody that she really got along with. A lot of the family, didn't get along with him. Parents had gotten divorced years ago. But she was completely separate from, all the emotion of the sadness and that grief, and watching father, in his last day, and, moments and everything. And what happened to her was she had what they now call a shared death experience, where because she wasn't caught in that, and I'm going to use the sphere of grief, she wasn't caught up in that. She had brought in the sphere of being able to see more what was going on, and she saw the room fill with golden light. She saw him reach up, and she actually got to see what he saw on the other side, what he was going to, because she wasn't caught up in that collective bubble or sphere of what everybody else in the family was so entrenched in and possibly feeding off of each other. She was completely removed from it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so interesting. I had Elizabeth Bosson on the show this year, who is the founder of Helping Parents Heal. So she was speaking to her son at the base camp of Mount Everest when he passed. And she had that shared death experience with him too, where she felt the bliss that he was experiencing as he left his body. And she speaks about that death experience with no remorse or grief. She talks about the beauty, and she created this amazing program to help, because the death of a child seems to be, in our collective sphere of understanding, seems to be the most terrible thing that we can experience. And so she helps people experience to leave that, to unplug from that sphere of grief, and to find some beauty in it, and presents a whole lot of speakers. You know, she's
Oh,
let me see,
it's
I can bring her up. Let me see
yeah,
if
it's
I
a
can bring her up.
beautiful gathering. While you're looking for that, it's a beautiful gathering. She does biannually. She does it, not biannual. She does it every other year with a fantastic team in a beautiful hotel in the deserts of Arizona. That's just this gorgeous resort, and they get to come together and deal with that very specific sphere where it is losing a child, whether small or older, and finding people that are on your same journey. And there's a lot of healing that goes on at that conference too,
Yeah.
even though, you know, somebody coming for their first time may not be in that sphere yet. But
But
as
I think
return,
you and I discussed it, and you said when you go, there's a lot of grieving parents. So there's a lot of pain around. So so Frances and the team, the spiritual team that wrote the team book, speak about this too. So what happens if you enter, like if you're participating like a march where people are angry, or a conference where there's a lot of grieving, people are in pain emotionally, like, can you maintain your vibration, your attack, you know, can you stay in your bubble and not get swept up? Like empaths and starseeds and all sorts of people, I've got to remember to do a station ID break, you know, say that they can't because they're feeling everybody else's pain. And when Desta was on the show yesterday, a few days ago, this week, she was getting really, you know, really sort of like adamant that that empaths don't have to suffer
they don't.
from
We don't.
everybody.
We don't.
And this is what Frances is saying here: to stay steadfast in your vibration and not get swept up in other people's vibration. If you don't, I mean, you can get swept up in joy and excitement. Go to a football game. I've never been a sports person, but years ago, my girlfriend took me to a football match, and they're like thousands of people all cheering and like, it was overwhelming. The energy was overwhelming. I was like amazed. I'm like, I've never experienced anything like that in my entire life. But get swept up in the excitement of it. You can do that, and that's what we do when we come together like that. So you're listening to Elevate, a new show on Elevate Consciousness, the awareness shift, waking the quantum self, on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM syndicated radio all over the place. I'm here with my good friend Kristin, Miss Mash, who is here to chat with me and help me navigate this as I do the teachings. Any questions from anyone about attachments and how to get rid of attachments from anyone in the chat? I'm going to do a bit more reading from the sphere, from the vibrational sphere chapter in the team books.
Heidi had a comment. Heidi had a comment.
Oh, what's she saying here? I'm not looking at it. I remember as a teenager going into my sister and brother-in-law's house. The tension in the air could be cut with a knife, right? Walking on eggshells. I could feel my anxiety ramp up instantly. Well, this is interesting. So as a conscious, deliberate creator, a person on their ascension journey, a light worker, a light weaver, a starseed, however you want to identify yourself, a healer, awake, conscious, however you want to, if you do walk into a situation like that, rather than be affected by it, you can directly influence it. It's the same with room clearing. People say, how to clear a house. I'm going to sage everything, and the original people in Australia are always clearing us with smoke. And I don't go for the smoke. I'm like, I don't choose to smoke. I don't want people shoving a fire stick in my face and asking me to breathe in smoke, whether it's sage or any other smoke. You can literally clear the energy of a house by simply creating another dominant energy that overtakes it, that overrides it, that pushes the energy out of the house. Like create joy, singing. So you can walk into the tension and you can maintain your vibrational stance, stay connected to your sphere of joy or peace or calm. Maybe if you enter the house, you might not be peaceful and calm, and so you just participate in the chaos in the house because you might be chaotic at the time too. But if you're not, you can literally change and diffuse the whole thing, like just bring it all down with your energy. I mean, we are so powerful. We are vibrational beings. We are driving this vibrational suit.
So do you ever have this experience? I'll just interject that. You know, I am known for the one to bring the calm, right? Like I run these events and I walk in and I can calm things down, or it's something that I emanate. I feel like I'm putting that sphere out there. I didn't know I did it until I got feedback constantly.
Nice. Yeah.
But sometimes you walk into a situation like Heidi and her sister and brother-in-law's house. Like, have you ever felt this, Karen, where you walk in and you bring in that higher vibe and it kind of irritates those people?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I was doing a personal growth. I was doing a personal growth course once as a young girl, and there was this old lady there that just hated me. I was really happy and joyful and excited to be there, and everyone was like in their misery and they're trying to get out of their misery. But I had joined it. I mean, I had still had misery, but I had joined it out of curiosity and wanting to know how to help and how to help myself and how to help others. So my intention for being there was more learning than to overcome my problems. So everyone's there trying to overcome their problems and they're all sitting in their misery. And I remember at lunch, I was just feeling the bliss and the joy, like I was just expanding and just tuning in, plugging into a vibration of excitement and joy and love, and feeling connected to everyone, like I just loved everyone. It was just really helping me. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting at the table at lunch and there was this lady sitting opposite me and she was just like firing insults at me. And I just told her I loved her. And she got so angry. She started screaming and yelling, and one of the facilitators came over and said, "What happened?" And she's pointing at me saying, you know, how horrible I was. But what I had done is I had told her I loved her because I had maintained my vibration. I was so excited, but it totally rocked her and upset her because she was inside her vibrational sphere of tragedy and upset. And yeah, it was funny when I think about it. I was kind of shocked at the time. And I thought about it like, what went on there? But we were not a vibrational match, even though we were sitting at the same table. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to read again.
Shirley has a comment. We can borrow Archangel Michael's sword and literally cut the tension. So.
Well, yeah, that's what we did with Desda on ATP. We did that. Yeah, we can do that. So the benefit to understanding this concept of vibrational spheres is that you can become a willing participant in the process rather than an instinctual participant. Stable spheres alignment is the most effective way to help your nation, your community, your neighborhood, your family, and yourself. Like to plug into your sphere that you want to align with and create that default setting or stable alignment. Therefore, she says in the book, I urge you to include visualizations of these spheres in your meditation. Give them a name and acknowledge the presence of the cords that connect you with them. Illuminated shafts through which nourishment can easily flow. So I'm plugging into bliss or joy or calm, and you can visualize this symbiotic, this relationship where you have this energy flow between you and it. You're feeding it and it's feeding you, like these lights of, swirling lights of energy. As you absorb the energy of the sphere, you are envisioning. Feel it filling you, and then overflowing its parameters of your being in the form of vibrational offering, which you return to the sphere. Remember to be relaxed and fearless in this process. It is counterproductive to push yourself into something unnatural, for you will not connect with the quality of the sphere you seek if you do so. Yeah. Oh, where are you?
I focused on you for a bit there while you were reading that, because it's so vital to not just talk about these subjects, but to have a tool to leave with something that we can do in our daily lives. And that's why these books are so important. So I love that the shaft and plugging right into it. I love to be able to have that illustration.
I would urge everyone to get the team books and read them. To me, along with a handful of other books, a dozen other books, I call them mandatory reading for the person on a spiritual journey. Yeah, to really understand who you are as a vibrational being, because we see ourselves as physical beings and we think action is creating, but actually vibration is creating. And this is another delving into attachments, and the vibrational sphere is actually the mechanics of how we're creating through vibration. Yeah, so last time on the show with Desda, as Shirley said, I asked Desda to do a little exercise with us of what can people do, because we talked about the energy anatomy. And I said, well, most people when seeking healing are wanting to feel better, either physically or emotionally. What can we do to sort of brighten us up? And she engaged Archangel Michael, as Shirley said, and said, to bring his sword. She was asking us to go up and take the sword and bring the sword down and visualize it and to literally cut it. And she did it in a very sort of mechanical way. And as I was doing it, I was thinking, it can actually be a lot quicker than this. This is something that I do in the shower, because we're picking up attachments throughout the day, where whatever we're engaging in, whether it's in the physical, when you're talking to someone, or when you're in traffic, as you said, or whether you're watching a screen, you're forming attachments all the time, attachments to theories, to vibrational spheres. And these little attachments are in your field. If you want to cleanse yourself at the day, what people say, I feel exhausted at the end of the day, like that you've got all these attachments all over you. You can literally clear yourself. So with Desda, she was cutting all these attachments off. But you can do that by cleansing your body with light energy, white light energy, or gold light energy, or do it in the shower, to not just shower your physical being, but to bring light into your energetic being and just clear yourself of all the attachments, like cleanse your auric field, cleanse your field of all the attachments that you've picked up throughout your day, throughout your life. Yeah, you can do it the speed of thought. You can do it at the speed of thought. But the way we did it with Desda was, do it this way, do it that way, do it. And for the kind of linear, the ego mind that's based in linear, it's quite good to have that instruction. Right. Do this, then do that, then do this. But it can be a lot quicker for all those light workers that are here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we, how do I say this? We have imaginative minds. Yeah, that's a really good question, Leslie. I wanted you to answer that, Karen. I think you say all four. Yes?
Well, the team books is, it's book 2 that I'm reading from. I would get all 4, definitely. But the book that I'm reading from is book 2, and the chapter is called Vibrational Spheres. Let me just bring up the books again.
She touches on them in book 1, and that's the only one that I've completed from beginning to end so far.
So what happens? What happens in book 1 is that she goes over everything that she covers in book 2 and 3. The 4 is a bit more beyond, but she goes over in smaller detail. She covers everything in book 1, but then she explains it in more detail in book 2 and 3 and 4. And in book 4, by the time she, where am I? I'm just looking. By the time she wrote or downloaded book 4, she realized at this point she wasn't just talking to her mother. And when she realized she wasn't just talking to her mother, because, even though her mother was on the other side, and she realized that her mother had access to infinite intelligence, she still had a concept of her mother as the personality that was her mother and what her mother knew in her physical life. And so it limited her idea of what was available. But when she realized that she was talking to more than just her mother, and her mother explained it to her, you're not just talking to me, you're talking to a team. And we all become a team, like they explain it in depth in the book, how we're all part of a team. We're not even operating as one person. We're a part of a vibrational team, a spiritual team that she says is close to us. She realized that there was more that she could, there was more information to come. So that book 4, sort of, she calls it Beyond the Team books, goes beyond just talking about our spiritual team. And yeah, so, but Leslie, which book all of them are great. I've read all of them, and I could read all of them again and again and again and again, because it's channeled information. It's not so much wrapped in story. There are a few stories. I think Francis's other books, she goes into more her stories. I like things wrapped in story because I always remember the story.
That's why we attach to something like Archangel Michael and the sword, because
it's a story.
It gets us into that mode. You had a guest on a year or so ago, and they were talking about all like the archangels and how they really are more, it's a vibrational frequency. I think it was a guest you had on, or I learned it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But they're all really a vibrational frequency, and they're very distinct vibrational frequencies. And thinking of the spheres, I'm thinking of how we tap into them. But, they show up for us. I create, like last week you were talking about how you created, your guide said, do you want us to show up as a handsome man? And he said, sure, right?
Yeah.
But, so to us, it shows up as this entity, like an actual entity that has wings or always comes with a shield and a sword. But it just becomes a familiar vibrational frequency to somebody who works in those, using that as a tool. So I could be like, oh yeah, that's Archangel Raphael, and this is what we're going to do, but thinking of it in terms of the spheres makes that make a little more sense to me. Well,
in truth, we're all a vibrational event, all of us. I mean, even the physical body that we're looking at, Desda used the word congealed light. We were speaking about Qigong masters who know how to use their Qi to stop bullets and, create fire and, karate chop cement blocks. They're using Qi. And she says that everything is light, and we are congealed light. In the books Channeling Eric talks about Eric, who committed suicide when he was about 19, 20, and he's a spirit guide now on the other side, channeling Eric stuff. He talks about, I think somebody asked him, what do you miss on the other side? And he said, I miss the sensation of hitting something and it stops, because we have this sensation of solidity, right? So we can clap our hands, we can touch a wall, we can hit the desk, we can, it's solid. And when you're in spirit, it's subtle light, so you don't have congealed light. But the whole reason we have this sensation of solid is just the frequency of energy, and it's congealed light. And it's actually not solid, but we have a sensation of solidity. It's so fascinating. Everything is energy. Had a bit of an aha moment when I was speaking to Desda this week. She was showing us the energy field and what the soul looks like, and it looked like an opal. And she was showing us these colors. And I said that Howard Storm, when I had him on the show, who had a near-death experience, he had that hellish experience. And then when he called out to God, because he was an atheist before he had the experience, and so I think his spirit guides were giving him this sort of like hellish experience so that he would cry out for a God he didn't believe in, which he did. And then he was talking to Jesus, and he was seeing these angels, and he said he saw these magnificent, luminescent, colorful spheres, and they called themselves angels or archangels. And they said, we can show up as a physical form. Would you prefer that? And he said no, because he was like hating humanity at that point.
Yes, he was.
He's like, I don't want to see human. I want to communicate with you like this. And he said the closest thing on earth that he's ever seen that came close to what he experienced these angels look like were opals. And then as Desda was showing us this opal form of who we are, and I just had this aha moment, like we as humans compartmentalize, like archangels look like opals, but maybe we don't, but we all do, right?
We do.
Like we all look like that, whether you identify yourself as angel, archangel, soul, spirit, human, consciousness, like whatever identity you put on it, like we all look like these vibrational spheres of swirling, multicolored, beautiful, colorful energy, sparkling like opals. We're all that magnificent, really. So I remember thinking when Howard told me that the angels look like that, I had sort of stuck in my mind, that's what an angel looks like. But then this week on the show, I'm like, that's what we all look like.
Yeah. But But collectively, we've chosen to, exist on this planet and look at each other in these forms, in these bodies, in this, yeah, yeah. I can't even put the words to it because it's hard for me to conceive, but I can when you talk about it and you give me a visual, like an opal,
Like an
right?
opal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can do that with our visualize. Like our minds are powerful. We are not victim to attachments. Who was the guy that I did? Oh my God, I've gone blank. The higher self conference with, I've gone blank on his name. Anyway, he put out a thing on TikTok talking about attachments, and it went viral. And he said all these people wanted to know how to remove their attachments. And I said, really? So many people are into that. But yeah, there is this paradigm of thought or a sphere of thought that attachments are a bad thing, and it's some demonic force or some negative force that attaches to you, and you're a victim to it and you have no power over it. And if you take away anything from today, attachments are everything you focus on, everything you think about, everything you're engaged in, you're attached to it. And according to your vibrational alignment, like where you're vibrating, how you know where you're vibrating, is that we have, much like smell gives us, the olfactory gives us a sensation of smell, and eyes give light, the sensation of vision, and hearing. We have an emotional guidance system in our physical body that shows us, like what we're feeling shows us the vibration we're engaging in. So how we feel, it's our emotional guidance system, or our emotional apparatus, much like our emotional sense. So I saw an opal like orb when my husband left his body. Really? Oh, beautiful, Alison.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So has anyone got any questions about this? So yeah, we're not victims to attachments. We just simply need to, what am I thinking about? What am I believing? What am I buying into? What am I attached to? If you get upset at the unfairness, like I talked about, maybe you see someone treating a dog badly and you might get all upset about it. So yeah, someone treated a dog badly. That's not great. But what are you attached to in yourself? Like unfairness, where else do you feel brutalized, victimized? Where else do you feel like life is unfair? Where else do you feel victimized? It all points to what you're holding in your subconscious energetic field, your electromagnetic field, the subconscious programming, and you can change that. Desda said on the show this week that the outer body, the soul anatomy, that opal energy that she was showing us, that is stable. That doesn't change. What changes the chakras, breaks them down or expands them, is the electromagnetic field, which is attached to ego and thinking. And that is creating. It was a really interesting show this week, and it was so poignant that we were talking about attachments. Does anyone feel like they have an attachment, but maybe after this conversation they don't? We've got 7 minutes to go.
And it begs the question, because there are or are there not disembodied entities that don't choose to go to the light, and they attach, like we were talking earlier in the conversation about, somebody who's been an alcoholic or an addict in this life may not go to the light and likes to hang around, the bars and attach themselves to that feeling.
Right.
So, are we completely discounting that, or are they different things? Speak to that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to read, just before we go, I'm going to read something else at the end of this chapter in the book.
Okay.
But
and then
I know a lot of people that go to AA, and I've had arguments with people about this. Once you identify as an alcoholic, always an alcoholic, so you can never, ever, ever, ever touch alcohol ever again, because you are a victim to it. And I've always said, you're not a victim to it. And people have said, no, I have an addictive personality. I am an addict. I am an addict. I cannot touch it, because once I touch it, then I can't control myself. This is a conversation I've had with so many people. I am an addict. I am addicted to it. There is a sphere of addiction. Like, are you plugged into addiction? Is that how you want to identify yourself with? Because we get to choose. Like, we make the rules for this life. There is no overlord saying this is the rules. Seth said in the Seth books, there are only 2 rules to life. 1, you create your own reality, and 2, there are no limits.
Yeah.
So if you believe that you are an addictive personality, or addicted person, then that's what you're going to create. And there is no limit to that vibrational sphere. I mean, how much you plug into that or how much you want to create that. No limits to what you can create that you want and celebrate, and no limits to what you can create that you don't want and don't celebrate. But we are at choice of all of this. I'm just going to read this before we go.
Okay, there are a couple good questions that have shown up though in this last minute.
Do you think that energy attachments due to your prayers or study is the same as negative energy trying to attach due to you being sick or emotional to drain your energy? Question. I don't really understand it. Do you understand it? So
you think
it all has a vibration.
I think Sparky's is saying, there's positive energy attachments as well as negative ones.
There's positive and negative. Yeah, we covered that at the beginning of the show, Sparky. But yeah, energy attachments are both positive and negative. Most people only talk about them in the form of negative. I've got an attachment means negative. It's like when people talk about emotional. People say, I remember when my ex-husband was playing poker and the boys would say, don't get emotional. And I said, well, what is emotional? Emotional can be joy and emotional can be upset or frustration. But every time people refer to emotion, like he was emotional or she was emotional, we immediately think, oh, she was crying or she was upset or she was angry. We never think that emotion covers all that spectrum. So she was emotional. Okay, so she was happy or sad? Well, she was emotional. Well, okay, the emotion covers happy and sad. But so does attachment, right? Attachment's the same. We refer to attachment as negative, but we can be attached to the sphere of joy or peace or excitement or celebration or the galactic spheres. I'm just going to read this before we go. Realize, too, that your alignment will change as you progress. Cling not to any insight you discover as something final. For there is no such thing as finality. Allow your mind to remain open, for you will always be discovering new intrinsicies within the spheres you embrace. Intricacies, get it right, Karen, within the spheres you have. These represent a deepening of perspective, not a contradiction. Breathe into your own authentic place of alignment, a place where you feel most at peace, a place where you experience harmony and the stimulation of characteristics of these spheres will begin to enrich your life in ways you cannot imagine. In addition, your team members, your spiritual team members, will be able to commune with you as never before, right? The happier you feel, the more connected you are to your guides because you're aligning with their vibration, as they literally ride upon the waves of these spheric vibrations to the doors of your soul. Remember that these spheres are organic, living, collective energy centers from where your team operates. There is no exclusivity in the matter. You in the field may join us in these spheric headquarters, the team is talking, and thereby become a clearer channel for the dimensional lights of the realms, for we are truly one. So what she's saying here is, as you tune into the vibrational spheres of joy and peace, and within that sphere there are like different alignments, different energy experiences, different characteristics, and you'll deepen, like on your spiritual journey you understand something, right? And you go, oh, I get it, and then you'll explore it more, and it becomes a deeper and deeper and deeper understanding until it becomes a knowing. And even when it's a knowing and you're living it, you still have a deeper and deeper understanding, and like you have these aha moments. So that's what they're saying. When you tune into the vibrational spheres, it's just this constant ride of deepening. And the more you deepen your heart and your knowing and your connection and your vibe, you connect more with your guides and their wisdom. And that gives you the ability, as Frances did, to download this information, whether it's personally or for the world. She spoke about, we got 1 minute left. She spoke about the energy she experienced during that 3 months where she downloaded the books. And it was like nothing she's experienced in her life before. It's like she was in this different dimensional field of existence as she was channeling the books. And it's beautiful how she speaks about it. But we've run out of time. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Hey, Diane.
And
what a great topic, fascinating.
Do a little plug because we got some good questions toward the end, but this is a format where you are able to send in questions beforehand as well. We would love to have a stockpile of your questions to go through. That's would be really a great thing to have. And so is it at KarenSwain.com that they do that?
Go to KarenSwain.com. It's pronounced Karen, spelt like Karen. KAren Swain, KarenSwain.com. And go to the contact or connect page and send in your questions. And you can leave a question in the comment too if you're listening to this afterwards. I'd love to know, any aha moments that you got or any questions. We can always address them later. We spoke about spirit guides last Wednesday/Thursday on the show, Thursday in Australia, Wednesday in the States. And there was a lot I didn't say about it that we just didn't get around to because an hour just went like, bang, it just disappeared. And I'm like, I didn't talk about that, and I didn't talk about that, and I didn't. So we'll go over that topic, but I'd love your questions. Yeah, send in your questions. Either email me or go to the website. You can go to questions@karenswain.com. That's an email address I've set up just for this. Haven't had any questions at that yet. Or leave your questions in the comments afterwards. Let me know what you thought. And thanks, Kristin, for helping out.
Yeah, you bet.
Big love
to you. It's
always
beautiful. Thank you. And
we haven't come up with a topic for next time, but we just like afterwards we chat about it like, what are we going to talk about next time? But if you've got a topic you want us to discuss on your spiritual journey, like I'd like to know more about this or I'd like to know more about that. Like, you can inspire what topics we talk about on Elevate Consciousness, the awareness shift, awakening the quantum self. Yay! Thanks, guys. You've been listening to Elevate, as I said, the awareness shift, and on the United Public Radio Network on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105 FM, syndicated radio all over the place. This is a new show. This is our third show, and we've got to go. Joe Montaldo is coming up with UFO Undercover, and then Michelle Durocher with her show after this. Catch you next time. Big love. Music.
I did it.